Um, I was hyperventilating. I was like, oh my gosh. I've got a great message. God really gave me a great message. And I just wanted to preface it that what I'm going to share was a small event, if you look at it in the scheme of things, but it showed me a great truth. And I wrote these later. And one of the things I realized that it can slip away very easily if I take it for granted. So Psalm 133, 1 through 3. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious oil upon the head, running down on the beard of Aaron, running down on the edge of his garments. It is like the dew of Hermon descending upon the mountains of Zion, for there the Lord commanded the blessing, life forevermore. And my topic is unity, one mind and one accord. So I'm going to tell a story. Jeff and I went to Florida in March and April. We travel in a very nice motorhome. It is a big production preparing to travel to Florida. I have to get all my summer clothes, take care of having the mail forwarded, get all my tax info to the accountant, food for traveling, all the stuff for the dog, grab my favorite kitchen utensils from home, all my books and magazines that have piled up for months that I hope to catch up on, etc. And most of all, I clean my house so I can come home to a clean house. Jeff is busy making sure the coach is travel ready, get all his clothes, pack all his tools, follow the weather forecast so we can avoid being caught in bad weather. It may sound like I have more to do, but he has to gear up and be ready to drive 1,500 miles and keep us safe. We are both busy trying to achieve the same goal, which is leave on time. It can become very stressful. We can get impatient with one another and the unity gets a little shaky. We did end up leaving on the day we wanted, but much later than planned. However, that was okay. It was the best time and we were ready together. We were united. And one of the things I realized is sometimes goals have to be adjusted. We need to be flexible on both sides, and our circumstances can dictate that. And also, time seems to be an issue between the two of us. Fast forward to the end of our vacation. It's a big production getting ready to go to Florida, and just as big a production getting ready to go home. We now have an extra vehicle and a boat that we have to prepare to put back in storage. It was the morning, a couple days before we were due to leave. I think I was starting to stress about what had to be done so we could leave on time. And I got myself in a mood because I kind of think that the boat should always be Jeff's responsibility because he loves it the most. So what I do is I start nitpicking, and I got upset with Jeff, and I really had nothing to nitpick or be upset about. As Aaron, our son, would say, you guys are too old to be fighting about that. I know I can become controlling and critical. Jeff got angry and left. I was so angry that he walked out, but I probably was more fearful. He is a flight risk, and I'm a fighter. I struggle with what I perceive as a double standard in our relationship when it comes to anger with each other. I think he gets to be mad and say and do whatever he wants, but I feel like I can't. I'm the one that's called to be submissive. I think he doesn't have to worry about acting like a Christian, but I do. So here I am alone and really mad, and the only one to fight with and yell at now is God. I found that when I'm angry at Jeff when something like this happens, I'm mad at God too. I told him I felt that Jeff had all the rights to act whatever way he wanted, and I was supposed to be meek, quiet, not angry, and submit. So here I'm all by myself in my little room in our motorhome, yelling at God. So as I'm working through my anger at Jeff and at God, the high emotions begin to diminish. I eventually realize I'm in the wrong and will have to apologize for the way I behaved. I knew I needed to forgive him for walking out. And really, that was only his part. And I don't even know if it's really, most people wouldn't, he had the right to walk out because I was out of control. My pride was definitely in the way. But as I quieted, God showed me there were things from the distant past regarding perceived double standards. I had not forgiven those, so the current struggle was adding to the pile of resentments. I confessed my unforgiveness to God for my behavior and attitude toward Jeff, and especially toward him. Not too long after that, Jeff called and asked if I wanted to meet for lunch at one of our favorite places, and I said yes. We had a wonderful lunch. We didn't talk about the incident at all, and I didn't apologize yet. Sometimes you just have to let things go and not make something such a big deal. It's not life or death, and we've been married a really long time. And I realized it was an act of worship to let go of my hurt and my anger. After we returned to our resort, I was able to apologize for my attitude. And I don't even know if he really, sometimes we apologize back and forth even when we don't need to. One may not need to really apologize. So he apologized for what I perceived was his wrongdoing. And so I don't know if he apologized, but I wasn't looking for or needed one. Forgiveness for the saint of God is connected to our attitude before the Lord and others. If we live in forgiveness, there will be unity in two directions, with our Heavenly Father and with each other. This is not to deny or undermine the pain, difficulty, or heartache behind the reasons why we need to forgive or be forgiven. Jesus said our role as he calls and teaches us is to forgive. I believe we are also called to receive his forgiveness through Calvary. Hebrews 12:14-15. Strive for peace with everyone and for the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and by it many become defiled. Matthew 18:21-22, and this is amplified. Then Peter came to him and asked, Lord, how many times will my brother sin against me and I forgive him and let it go? Up to 7 times? Jesus answered him, I say to you, not up to 7 times, but 70 times 7. Matthew 6:12 in the Amplified. And forgive us our debts as we have forgiven our debtors, letting go of both the wrong and the resentment. I wanted to share this story because what happened later on that day. Now, this is my experience. This whole Power 30 could have had many numerous titles, as you can probably pick out on the telling of it. But unity is what it meant to me. So it may not impact you in quite the way it did me. So we began making plans to get the boat and truck back to storage. Jeff had to get all his fishing rods currently at our motorhome site back to the boat currently down in the marina. Jeff wanted to bring the boat up to our resort and load the rods there. Then we would just have to head up to the storage area over an hour away. It could all be done in one day. However, the resort had a policy that nothing was to be parked on the streets of the resort. I called them and asked permission to park on the street for 1 hour. They explained their policy. We would be fined if we brought that boat up and had it sitting on the street. We brought up about other vehicles that had been parked on the street that we had seen. And they said, well, they got fined. Needless to say, we were very disappointed that things weren't going our way because they continued to say no and wouldn't budge. We started saying things like how unreasonable the resort people were and other negative comments. And it was very easy to be angry. All of a sudden, though, as we sat kind of quietly mulling and stewing over this, I had thoughts of what gives me the right to determine whether their rules and policies are unreasonable or what. I just needed to abide by them with the right spirit and obey. So the Holy Ghost began to get bigger than my flesh. Now I know that Jeff could have and would have probably thought of this himself, but I was the one who said to Jeff, come on, let's load up the Jeep with the rods, even if we have to make several trips. That's okay, and we can do this. So we worked together and got it done, and we only had to make one trip, and it all went smooth as clockwork. I told this story because of the unity of the Spirit I felt with God and Jeff the rest of the day. It was an experience, and it was my experience. I felt connected to both at the same time. There was love, there was peace, and there was joy. Regardless of our circumstances, we could move mountains. I had obeyed God's principles of forgiveness and love thy neighbor as thyself. The reward was experience the love and peace of God naturally and supernaturally, because this whole time when we're going around from doing one project to the next as we're taking care of this, I just felt the presence of God. And I was like in my own little world with it, and it was just amazing. It felt like heaven on earth. Now I know earth, I'm not trying to make earth my heaven, but we can have some heaven on earth if there's unity. This message wasn't about marriage and how to make up. It's about our heart. It is about the power and unity through forgiveness. It applies in all our relationships. God's blessings are hindered by self-righteous anger, resentments, and unforgiveness. James 1:20. For the resentful, deep-seated anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God, that standard of behavior which he requires from us. 1 Corinthians 13:4-7. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, endures through every circumstances. Forgiveness and being in unity should be our lifestyle. John 17:21-23. Now here is Jesus praying to the Father for us. I do not ask for these only, but also for those who will believe in me through their word, that they may all be one, just as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. The glory that you have given me, I have given to them, that they may be one, even as we are one. I in them and you in me, that they may become perfectly one, so that the world may know that you sent me and love them even as you have loved me. Pastor Chad preached about not letting the enemy steal the joy of God's promises, and disunity can be a joy killer. And so I was thinking about that when I got to the end of this, and I came up with a couple of scriptures. John 15:8-11. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit and so be my disciples. If the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be full. And finally, in Psalm 16:11, you make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore.